Hi everyone, this is Tevi recording from Franklin on my laptop, so the sound may be a bit funky. But here we go. Welcome to the Cold War in Asia, Part 2, the Korean War. And I'm introducing this slide to show the Korean War Memorial in Washington, D.C. The Lincoln Memorial is off to the right there, and if you've never gone to this, please check it out on your next visit to our nation's capital. So let's get right into A. At the end of World War II, what was going on? Well, I want you guys to again remember that Japan had conquered quite a bit of Asia. We talked about China, and they also had occupied Korea. So they had troops there. So the first thing I want you guys to fill in is that American and Soviet forces went to Korea to disarm the Japanese troops stationed there. Right, to take away their military forces. And so the Allies decided to divide Korea at the 38th parallel of latitude. So the Soviets controlled the north, and the American troops controlled the south. So as the Cold War began, talks to reunify Korea broke down, and a communist government was organized in the north, while an American-backed government controlled the South. Both governments claimed authority over Korea, and border clashes along this 38th parallel were common. So this seems to be our pattern of trying to contain the spread of communism. Remember, we did this in Germany, and unsuccessfully, we lost part of Germany to the communists, and here we are going to try to hold on to the southern part of Korea to remain democratic. And so the next thing I want you guys to fill out is that the Soviet Union provided military aid to the North, who quickly built up a well-trained army. And on June 25th, 1950, I want you guys to fill in the North invades the South, and you can see the arrows here to show the movement of troops. So when you fill out what happens on June 25th, the invasion, guys, really overwhelms the South. It drives them all the way back down to the southern part of the peninsula in the port city of Busan. Guys, the Southern Army is poorly equipped and trained. And so, guys, look down here. Here's Busan. The Soviet military certainly helps the North. Under C, Truman saw the communist invasion of South Korea as a test of our containment policy and ordered U.S. naval and air forces into action. He then called on the United Nations to pledge their support, which means UN troops. He also ordered his senior commander, General MacArthur, to send his American troops from Japan, where they were, to Korea, because South Korea badly needed reinforcements. And so under D, the American and South Korean troops were driven back. And again, I want you to make sure you guys know that this is the port city of Busan. So July 5th is where this first real confrontation is. We certainly thought we would do a lot better. So we certainly were caught off guard by the strength of the North Koreans. And so I have pictured here the troops stationed at the Busan perimeter. So you guys want to fill that in under the next bullet. Inside the Busan perimeter is this zone that we kind of had to dig ourselves into. Troops stubbornly resisted the North Koreans, buying time to wait for MacArthur's reinforcements. Alright guys, check out how the map is changing. On September 15th, 1950, MacArthur ordered a daring invasion behind enemy lines at Incheon. So off to the side there, guys, in the margin, I do want you to note that it was an amphibious assault, similar to D-Day in that it was very tricky to plan because of the geography. I'm going to show you guys a picture, but Incheon was surrounded by these crazy tides, erratic tides, right, hard to predict, that created havoc for incoming ships. So MacArthur certainly went, against objections And the Americans were successful. We gained control, and then were able to recapture Seoul within days to cut off the North Korean supply lines. So again, on our map, note the change in the arrows. And here is Incheon on the coast here. So to fill in, this took the North Koreans by surprise, and within weeks were in retreat. Truman then gave the order to pursue North Korea beyond the 38th parallel. And MacArthur pushed the North Koreans all the way to the Yalu River, which is the border of China. So again, we'll put this on our map as well. Look at the border here. So remember, we're stuck all the way down here at first. We then attack here, and then we move all the way up north. So here's a picture of Incheon. So there's this muddy area, and the tides here make it very difficult to plan for the invasion. All right, I just advanced by mistake. This laptop is cuckoo. But I am on to China, so good timing. Under number 2, guys, China enters the war. So I want to ask, why are the Chinese supporting the North Koreans? You should be able to answer that, but we'll talk about it in class. So guys, the Communist People's Republic of China saw the advancing UN troops as a threat and warned them to halt their advance. So just look at this political cartoon I found. Certainly it's showing the Chinese warning us. This is a cartoon kind of MacArthur over here on the right. I don't know, we don't seem to follow these warnings. So on the next page, guys, when those warnings were ignored, China crossed the Yalu River in November, and hundreds of thousands of Chinese forces flooded across the border, driving the UN forces back across the 38th parallel. So this just shows the movement again of the troops. The map certainly changes a lot during the beginning part of this war. So the Chinese make a huge difference. And before we get to number 3, I just think you guys should know that I think this is very significant. It really changes the course of the war and our objectives. So let's get right to number 3, MacArthur's plan. So here's the big man. He demands approval to expand the war against China. He asked for several things, and just take note. He asked first for a blockade of Chinese ports. So he wants to hurt them where it counts with trade. He then asked to use Chiang Kai-shek's nationalist army. And then, to just put the icing on the cake, he asked to bomb Chinese cities with atomic weapons. So what do we think would happen if the U.S. allowed MacArthur to go all out against China? Pretty scary to fathom. All right, so under number 4, Truman says no. He has to stand up to the big man. So he refuses MacArthur's demands because he was against escalating the war. MacArthur persisted and publicly criticized the president, arguing that it was a mistake to keep the war limited. So guys, fill in that he argued it was a mistake to keep the war limited. He is known to have said there is no substitute for victory. And he argued meaning a limited war was a form of appeasement. And he said appeasement begets new and bloodier war. So let me explain that, guys. Appeasement, remember, is what happened in World War II when Great Britain allowed Hitler to take Czechoslovakia and didn't stop him, did not confront him, right? Allowed him to make some concessions, and then Hitler never stopped, right? So we don't want to repeat the past. We need a strong show of force in the Cold War. This is what MacArthur is really driving at. So next thing to fill in is to show his control of the military. Remember, guys, the president is the chief. And to show that the president, is in charge. He fires MacArthur for insubordination. So there's the headlines from the paper. And he's known to have said, "I was sorry to have reached a parting of the way with the big man in Asia, but he asked for it, and I had to give it to him." So fill in those quotes. Remember, I'm big on images, so here's a political cartoon. Just put this off to the side. The title of this political cartoon is Not a General's Job. And so the general here is MacArthur. He's pictured there on the right. And so I believe the hidden meaning here is that MacArthur had overstepped his boundaries. He was taking too much authority in Asia, possibly starting World War III, and so Truman had to put him in his place. Just as important, our images are also primary sources. So on number 5, I just want you guys to listen and read this and then answer one question. So this is Truman's address to the Civil Defense Conference in May 1951. And so he says that the Soviet Union is trying, and has been trying for a long time, to drive a wedge between us and the other nations. It wants to see us isolated. It wants to see us distrusted. It wants to see us feared and hated by our allies. Our allies agree with us in the course we are following. They do not believe we should take the initiative to widen the conflict in the Far East. If the United States were to widen the conflict, we might well have to go it alone. So my question for you is, what is Truman worried about? So after you answer that question, fill in the bottom there that Truman also noted that if war broke out, Europe was closer to the Soviets and would suffer more damage. They also might be attacked by nuclear weapons. So the fear that an all-out war in Korea might lead to nuclear war shaped American foreign policy in the Cold War. And so finishing up on the last page, the Korean War is called the Forgotten War. It is how Korean War veterans feel. So we're going to watch some of their interviews. So I really hope you guys enjoy the documentary. We'll watch that on Block Day. So changes in policy, guys. By mid-1951, the UN forces had pushed Chinese and North Koreans back across the 38th parallel. And so the war then settled down to really a series of smaller battles with smaller objectives. And the casualties, really piled up. This shows the cost of war on the civilian side. It's interesting, guys, while this is happening, there are peace negotiations. So even as early as November of 1951, fill out that peace negotiations began, but would not be official until July of 1953. And then, guys, more than 33,600 American soldiers died there, and more than 2,800 died of disease or of accidents. And until 1950, the U.S. had preferred to use political pressure and economic aid to contain communism. So that was certainly how we dealt with Germany, and we sent, all this aid to Europe to rebuild the economy to try to stop communism. But after the Korean War, things changed, guys. Fill out, after the Korean War, the U.S. started a major military buildup that really continues until this day. After the Korean War, the U.S. became more involved in containing communism in Asia by having active military engagements there. And so this slide kind of sums up some of these changes, guys. In 1954, the U.S. signs defense agreements with 5 countries. Put down, it's Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, the Philippines, and Australia. So it's called SEATO, or the Southeast Asia Treaty Organization, which is the Asia version of NATO. And American aid also began flowing to French forces who were fighting the communists in Vietnam. And so I'd like to end this screencast with a slide to show the U.S. defense budget. And I would like you guys to look at the peaks in spending. So just make note at the very end of your notes of, where are the highest peaks. You should be able to see, at least 3 that I want you to put down. Where is our defense spending the highest and why? This is Tevi signing off from Franklin. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Bye.